Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here, and today we're going to talk about one of the lesser known features of the Tsunami2 called constant brake distance. Now, many of you guys have automated layouts, and what that means is that as your locomotives travel across the layout, there are certain triggers and things that tell the decoder and the locomotive what to do. And one of them that we're going to talk about today is called constant brake distance. And what that means is when the decoder is running, regardless of the momentum settings, you can actually tell the decoder at what distance you need it to stop at, regardless of how fast it's going. This way, when you're setting up your high-speed passenger trains or your slow-speed heavy freights, you can have them all stop and start at the same places. So let's check out how it works. So to do this, first of all, I've got this locomotive here in front of me, and this has a pretty heavy momentum. So let's first show you what happens when the locomotive stops without the constant brake distance active. So right now my deceleration momentum rate is set at 225, so it's a pretty high deceleration rate. And what we're going to do is we're going to move the locomotive at about speed step 20. And once it reaches this blue line, we're actually going to give it a zero motor command, and we're going to see how long it takes the locomotive to come to a stop. So now that the locomotive is moving at speed step 20, we're going to go ahead and release. And now when the locomotive gets to the blue line here, we're going to go ahead and cut the throttle. Now with a high deceleration rate, you're going to see how long it takes the locomotive to come to an actual stop. We're going to run out of track here in this case before it comes to a stop. And now we're going to take CV220, that's CV220, and we're going to set that to a value of 64. And this is going to be a trial and error, so you can determine what the value is for your layout. So play around with it, try it out, see which values you come up with. But for this example, we're going to use 64. So now once I get my locomotive again moving at speed step 20, now we're going to let it release. And now we're going to cut the throttle right there at the blue line. Now you're going to notice that it's going to come to a stop. A lot faster than what it did before. So now our locomotive is stopped. So we're going to go ahead and take this blue piece of tape, and we're going to mark about where that locomotive come to a stop. So now we're going to try this same exercise, but this time we're going to be moving at speed step 50. Now with the locomotive moving at speed step 50, once we get to the blue line, we're going to cut the throttle. And you're going to notice that that locomotive is going to stop within that same distance. So when you're setting up your automated layouts, you can have your trigger point at some specific place so that way your Tsunami2 decoders will stop within the distance that you've prescribed based on where that setting is. Now this also works on our Tsunami2 steam. So we're going to take our steam locomotive here, and I've got CV220 set to 64 as well. So we're going to go ahead and crank it up to about speed step 30. So now that we're running at speed step 30, let's do the same thing. So with our locomotive now, once we reach the blue line here, we're going to go ahead and cut our throttle. Now you can see that the locomotive has come to a stop. So we're going to go ahead and mark this. So let's do this exercise again, but this time we're going to be moving at speed step 50. So now once our locomotive reaches speed step 50, we're going to release, and then we're going to cut the throttle. So you can see how different values in CV220 are going to be affected differently depending on what model and locomotive you're working on. So you can adjust the value to CV220 to match your tastes. Now for more information, please visit our website at SoundTraxx.com, and for more specific information on constant brake distance, go to the User's Guide under the Manuals tab.